It's hot. Oh man, it's hot. I've just been running. I've just run 5 miles, all on a treadmill, and it's hot. It's like a sauna inside my body. I need to find a way to cool down. I thought this would be the perfect way to cool down. Maybe it will be. I thought the more I talk, maybe the more I forget that I'm hot, and the more I'll cool down. I burn hot. You won't find me outside. Even when I'm inside, I'm not outside. I'm in the shade inside. I'll find shade anywhere. I mean the good shade, the cool shade, not the bitchy shade. That's not the kind of shade I'm into. Maybe sometimes. I hope you're doing well. I think I'm doing well. Who knows who they're doing? Who knows if you're doing well? Only you know if you're doing well. There are no rules. I've said this on a couple of podcasts. I've had this conversation with so many people recently. There are no rules to a pandemic. So now that's my cat. I don't know if you can hear him. I've got a new mic, so I'm hoping that eliminates a lot of the background sound, seeing as I'm recording from home. That's my cat. My cat's hot. Have you ever seen a hot cat? They just sprawled out like a ruler with ears, just there in the heat, begging for the cool, a little bit like me. How you doing, Miles? Miles is feeling the heat. I'm feeling the heat. But I'm cooling down. The more that I talk, it's working. So I finished a run. Running's been good for me in this pandemic. What was I saying? There are no rules, though. So, you don't have to lose weight. You don't have to write a book. You don't have to start a podcast. It's okay if you put on weight. There was no guidebook for this. It's okay. That's what I'm telling myself to make myself feel better. And I do believe it to be true. I think the only universal truth that I'm finding in this pandemic is that it's bringing everyone, each individual, closer to the things they feel are important to them or should be important to them, but maybe they've forgotten. So for me, that's health, exercise, mental well-being, sleep, writing, reading, thinking. I've been talking more than I expected to, mainly on podcasts. Maybe I'll get to that in a moment. But I've been keeping cool. I guess I haven't been outside too much. In the UK, if it's above 20, that's hot for me. It's above 30 at the moment. There's no chance you'll see me. The microphone gives out no heat, so I'm here. It took me a while to get back here on my own. I released an episode about a month or two ago, my first intro to the advertising hour with just me, and I'll be speaking on marketing news. And maybe just my thoughts that are kind of loosely related to marketing, business, leadership, technology, all the things I enjoy, which I'm encompassing as advertising. If you want to know why, go back and listen to that first episode. But yeah, I've been exercising. The one thing I haven't really got around to as much, which is partly what everything was in order today. So I managed to avoid the heat. Man, the heat. If you do go outside, like I have to pop to the shops, and I'm already hot, so I try and wear shorts, loose tee. I try and keep myself cool. What else do I do to try? And then now you have to wear the face mask. And then for me, I have to wear sunglasses because I have super sensitive eyes. So I've got my sunglasses on. I've got my face mask. Sophie, my girlfriend, says that I look like a Guess Who character. So that gets me hot. That just gets me hot and irritated just knowing that I look like a Guess Who character. My hair's up in a headband at the moment because I've had my hair cut for 5 months. So I look like, I feel like I look like a young Inspector Gadget. I feel like that's what I look like. And when you add that to the sunshine and you add that to the little face orners that you've got to wear now, that's going to get you hot. So that's how I'm feeling. Oh man, come here, Miles. And my cat is rubbing himself on the microphone. This is no ice, not ice, Miles. What else is going on? So yeah, it's hot. I'm looking forward. The winter is the month I like the evenings. I like the night time. I'm a night owl, and I like the winter time and the summer. I just wasn't built for the summer. I feel like maybe I'm not into astrology. I've been hearing more about astrology recently. I'm not into astrology, but I feel like it might be because I'm a Pisces. I'm just water based. I need to be cool. I guess there is hot water, but hot water is not natural, right? I guess there's hot springs. Forget about it. I'm a Pisces. Let's play some music. Let me really get into this. This feels like summer. It's not that I hate summer. I just hate the heat. There's a lot about summer that I enjoy. And I enjoy music like this. That's relaxed me. That's lowered my heartbeat. That's lowered the temperature for me. Now I'm feeling a bit looser. I've got what have I got here? I've got I've got two drinks. I've got a very cool drink, a slightly warmer drink, and then what I'm going to do is I've got a little CBD, which for me, maybe I'll talk about CBD sometime on this podcast, but listen, CBD's got so many benefits. I'm going to have a giant puff on. I use a CBD from a brand called Sensimia. They help to keep the bed bugs away. So I'm going to have a big. Just 3 deep breaths on the CBD Sensimia vape. Now help me relax into the podcast. And I'm relaxed. I'm feeling good. It just helps loosen a bit of tension, particularly after running, particularly at the end of a hard day. And it will really help me sleep. So once this hour or so is through, I know I'll be able to shut it down and go to sleep. And that's some form of meditation, I think. Let's go for number 2. I've recently learned that my breath control isn't great. So I upgraded to a Fitbit Versa 2 from a Charge 4. Shout out to all you Fitbit fans out there. And listen, I don't use all the apps that much because I know when I'm healthy and I know when I'm not. So I'm kind of semi-interested. But I had the Charge 2 for a while. The battery was running out. I like the Fitbit product, so I upgraded to the Versa 2, which has got a few more features, functionality. Highly recommend it. It's been great so far. And there's one feature that I really like in it. So, mental health, just well-being, relaxation, something that's really important to me. something that I need to pay attention to myself. And so I'm always on the lookout for things that are going to help with my mental well-being, my relaxation, just keeping myself well balanced. And so on the Charge 2 and just, I guess, on a range of Fitbit products, they have a relax function, which is all about breath control. You press a button and it helps you undertake deep breathing exercises for 2 to 5 minutes. So for me, that kind of deep breathing exercises are useful for jiu-jitsu, which I'm not currently doing, but it's something I really enjoy. Just for exercise, for breath control in general, for when I'm running, particularly because I like running 5, 10K quite regularly. And I want to improve my cardio and I want to improve my breath control. And then there's just all the other health benefits that come with better breath control and relaxation. So they've got, I think, 2 minute, 3 minute, and 5 minute relaxation exercises. And you're meant to deep breathely and I don't know how it does this. I need to read up on the science of this. But you breathe in tune. I guess that's in sync with the on-screen display. And when you're doing it well, it kind of flashes up green. And when you're not doing so well, it comes up in some kind of different color. I think maybe red or something. So it's a little bit like Guitar Hero, but for breath control. Listen, I am not good with coordination. So Guitar Hero, stuff like that, it's not my scene. And apparently just breathing isn't my scene either. So I need to improve because it said I've got a low accuracy of breathing. How can you listen? I don't understand, but I've got low breathing accuracy, and that's a little bit concerning to me. So I'm going to be on a little bit of a mission to improve my breath control using my Fitbit Versa 2. If you've had that problem, let me know how you overcome it. I don't know. Maybe it's this vape. I don't know. I guess the jury's still out on vapes, right? See, I'm someone who's never smoked in their life. So when I got introduced to the CBD vape, I was a little bit nervous. I thought, what's this going to do to my lungs? And I guess I can't see if I look hard enough, I can see like a little bit inside myself, like maybe just the backs of my eyes, a little bit further if I really think about it. But I can't see my lungs. But I feel like they're doing okay. I don't smoke this too often. I don't vape on this too often. Maybe once a day, a few times a day. But I saw someone. Who did I see? I saw someone that was a smoker, like a cannabis smoker, and their lungs shrunk. So although there's all the benefits of cannabis and what it can do to you, if you're smoking cannabis, I think it can do kind of incredibly bad things for your lungs, more than what people realize. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to take a third puff. That feels good, man. So, what's been going on since I last spoke to everyone? I needed to jump on. I've been so busy with recording podcasts. I think in the last month, maybe 6 weeks, I've recorded 20 to 30 podcasts. So it's partly the reason that I haven't sat down to just talk on my own. That's partly the reason. Partly it's an excuse as well. Everyone has an hour spare. Probably a day, not even a week, not even a month, a day. Everyone has an hour a day spare. I have no doubt about that, to do the things that they enjoy, including me. And we kind of create this narrative for ourselves. Who knows why? I know I do it for myself, that we're too busy. Maybe we just feel the strain, and maybe that's a good thing. So maybe we use busy as the reason for balance. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we don't need to use busy, though. Maybe it's okay to just say, I don't want to do that. Or actually, that's what I need to do. And I'd actually encourage other people to do that too. I hate it when people say they're busy when they're not. I like people to be open with me, and I like to be open with everyone else and just say, if there's something I don't want to do, I don't want to do it. If I need to watch my own energy, my own well-being, I just need to keep that in check. I need to find that balance. And maybe the thing that's on your agenda that you want me involved in, it's just not good for me that day. And I think we just all need to be better at being considerate and conscious and aware of those things in other people. I think that's really important. Thinking about energy, actually, this is probably the last time I mention heat because I'm cooling down now. Simmer down, simmer down, simmer down now. What was I thinking about? Oh, there it is. So this is how I feel when I go outside when it's hot. You know when you're on a video game and someone throws fire at you, or you've got to run through fire to kind of get to a checkpoint. And for every time that you're running, every moment that you're running through the fire, your energy bar drains. So you're running through and there's kind of some kind of noise in the background, and your energy bar is ticking down. Oh, what noise does it make? It's boom, 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 like that. That's how I feel when I'm outside in the heat. So by the time I've made it out from destination A to B, I get to B, I'm drained. I know I've got to make it back to A. And when I'm back to A, I'm done. There's no going out for the rest of the day. I'm A to B to A. I'm ABBA. That was right? Maybe that's where they got that from. So that's how I feel. I can't remember what I was speaking about. I was speaking about being conscious of other people's energy. I think that's really important at this time. Like I said, there are no rule books. But yeah, there's an hour for everyone. There's an hour for me. And even though I've been recording so many podcasts, I've had such a great time recording. I've recorded so many episodes for this, which I'm really excited to release. And I've interviewed so many incredible people already. And I've got so many on the horizon who I'm just absolutely amazed have reached out to me and said, hey, can I be, I'd love to just speak to you. Not can I be on your podcast? I'd just love to speak to you. That's an amazing thing to kind of receive those requests. And I really am putting in a lot of time and effort to be the best interviewer that I can be. That doesn't necessarily mean best podcaster. I think that's something I'm not as focused on. So I think that for me, podcasting is the medium, but the true skill is the interview techniques. So that's where I'm really focused on my attention. Maybe I'll speak about that more in a moment, but that's the bit that I've been focusing on. And a lot of people don't see what happens behind the scenes. So that means that there's a lot of research, there's a lot of learning, there's a lot of structuring episodes, and just getting to know people and finding what's going to help get the best episode, the best information possible. You come on a mic and you jump on recording with someone that you've never met before. And the skill is to try to break down. I mean, most of these people I've not met before that I'm interviewing. And so the skill is to try and generate a rapport very quickly. Not only generate a rapport, but then break down some form of barrier and give a room for conversation where people can share their thoughts, experiences, ideas, tips, techniques, just share their life in a format that they're comfortable with and that an audience gets something useful or entertaining out of. That's incredibly hard. I can't say that I overlooked it. I knew that was going to be a challenge for me. I knew that it was going to be a lot of time that I need to invest to get really good at it. And I know that's going to be ongoing for a number of years to get really good at it. It's a journey that I'm glad I've started though. But the one that I have put on the back burner and I've used being busy as an excuse is me talking. So me getting on the mic myself and just being comfortable with sharing my thoughts, my ideas. And that's one of the reasons I started this particular podcast in the first place. To share my thoughts, my ideas, my techniques, my advice, my problems, just to take a moment out. Like I said, part therapy, part study, part meditation. That's what this is. I thought about that before actually this episode. I thought I've done a lot today. So I've been running. I've got all kind of home chores done. I've eaten well. What else have I done? I've written today. I've done some writing. So I feel pretty productive, but I haven't done any meditation today. Maybe I'll experiment with this a little bit, but I thought, is it a good technique to meditate before an episode? So I kind of try and clear my mind and focus in on just the episode, or is it a good thing to just, press record and just let everything flow and let that be a form of meditation? I'm not sure. I'll probably experiment with both. Today I didn't do the meditation beforehand. It's something, again, I've been using as an excuse, just saying that I'm busy, that I just haven't got into meditation, but I know that's important. If there's you can feel when your life is out of balance. You can feel it. There's a scale that you can feel. I guess the scale is the 24 hours in a day. And really, if you've got a balanced scale, then you should kind of go through this. You wake up relaxed, and then I guess you go into a form of productivity, and then maybe you wind down in the evening, and sleep should be relaxing, and you should have your 8 hours or whatever it is. I guess that's how you know if your life's balanced-ish. And I guess I'm not feeling, if there's like an hour or a few hours in that day, and you're procrastinating, and you can see it, it's there in the front of your mind, but you're kind of just choosing to ignore it, that's when you know you're out of balance. So I'm a little bit out of balance with meditation, not so much, but that's the bit that I need to find. So, and I guess it's partly intimidating as well in marketing. And this, again, I've used this as a bit of an excuse in my own mind. And I've really got to find the balance on this podcast about what to share, what not to share, to make it useful. But there's so much going on in marketing, and maybe I need just better structure. But actually, that's what I wanted to avoid as well. I didn't want this to be too much of a structured, well-produced, polished podcast for my own individual episodes anyway. I wanted to give myself the kind of freedom just to talk. But there's a lot to be said. I forgot what I was saying. I guess there's a lot to be said for structuring episodes, to having an idea in mind in marketing about where you want to start, so that you know what to share, because there's so much going on. How do you cut? That's the question I guess I'm asking myself. How do you cut through the noise so that you know what to share? Do I want to share all of the latest marketing news? No, because I don't really want to do that, because there's lots of marketing news out there that you're going to find on your own. There's great blogs, there's great summaries. I don't really want to share all of the marketing news. I think I only want to share or talk about the things that I've observed that have really piqued my interest. So I guess if you're coming to this podcast and you think you're going to find the latest news, this probably isn't for you. If you're looking to, through conversations, through me talking, through maybe just listening to me, and if what I say resonates with you, maybe applying, or just talking to me, just reaching out to me and talking to me about if what I'm saying resonates with you, and you've tried something that maybe I've recommended, or maybe just let me know if something that I say is something that you're challenged by or you've thought about too. To be honest, that would help me, because sometimes you feel really crazy in this industry. So I guess I made that an excuse. I don't know what to structure. I don't know how to take all of the news that's happening around me and structure it into an episode, so I'm not going to jump on the mic. But I needed to get over that. And today was the perfect day. Like I said, vape in hand, drink in hand, or drinks in hand. The only person around me today is my cat. He's feeling the heat, but other than that, he's good. It's late at night. There's no extra noise. Actually, there's a good podcasting tip. If you're in a place where you can talk and it's late at night, you've got fewer distractions. I found it really difficult to do podcasts in the morning, because you get people driving to work, walking to work, buses, what else? Oh, postmen. It's just, I guess, like wildlife. Not that I'm in a jungle. Is wildlife an extreme term to use there? Listen, I say it's an extreme term. I had a seagull. I had to raise a seagull this week. That's been going on. I was sitting here podcasting one morning, and there's a window directly in front of me. And I was on a podcast interviewing someone, and I heard Sophie shout from the other room, "Oh my God!" Which I'm pretty used to. And then I heard a door slam. And from the corner of my eye, looking out the window in front of me, I saw a seagull fall to the floor, and kind of I think it was concussed. I've only really seen MMA fighters concussed, and it kind of had a look like it had been concussed, but there wasn't a referee in sight or a doctor. So, using all of my mixed martial arts experience, watching experience, I decided that it had been concussed by falling. So this seagull was 0-1. It had been knocked out, and it just sat there, shaking its head a little bit. And turns out it was a seagull that had. I think maybe they say it had fallen after trying to fly, but I think someone pushed it. So I don't know who's, maybe another gull, another bird, whoever, whatever else is up there, and it stayed with us out of this window. I podcasted almost every day for the last couple of weeks, and I watched out of this window in front of me a seagull that just stayed in a garden and learned how to fly. That was such a beautiful thing to watch unfold. So that's something I've experienced. There are more things like that. Just shit like that is happening in this pandemic. Just shit is falling out the sky and learning to fly in your garden. Everything. It's crazy what's happening. There is too much. Eminem has been everyone's worst enemy, and now he's the GOAT. All in the space of 5 months. It's crazy. Mike Tyson. On the first episode, this was 6 weeks ago, I said, look at Mike Tyson. He's getting in shape. I think I talked about maybe I'd like to see him box again. Now he's boxing again. He's 54. He's making a return. It's 2020. Trump is still crazy. That's going on. Beirut. There's a crazy bomb. Love to Beirut. What else? What else has happened? There's been a lot of music. Netflix. The UK's crazy. America's crazy. Maybe I'll get into that in a moment. In 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it's been since I last recorded an episode myself, what have I experienced? Let me think about that for a moment. Well, I went to my first protest. Yeah, I've been to protests before, but like accidentally. Like I've been walking, maybe on a lunch break, and there I am, fighting the power. And no, this protest meant something to me. It was consensual. I went. So I went to my first ever protest. It's crazy I'm almost embarrassed to say that, but I went, and I guess that's what's important. It was a Black Lives Matter protest. I'm going to guess it was about 6 to 8 weeks ago. Again, it was another hot day. That immediately made me not want to go. It was right in the middle, which we're still in. It was during the pandemic. I thought long and hard about that. I felt morally conflicted about going to a protest in a pandemic. I still do. But all things considered, it was the right thing to do. And it was a beautiful thing. I wish I had protested in the past for the things that I believed in, and I'll certainly be thinking about doing that again in the future. Not thinking I'll be going again in the future. It really made me feel like I'd leveled up as a person to go out and be amongst people and protest in a really peaceful manner for something I believed in and something that was important to me. Something that's not just that I said was meaningful, but you take action on it. We're all lazy. We all are. I am. You probably are. I'm assuming. If you're listening to this, you're probably lazy. Actually, come back. I didn't mean that. So to get up, if you're a Gen Z, Gen Z is something else I've been talking about lately, a millennial, we're not used to, I don't know, this. Not that we're not used to things. It's easier to stay in. It just is easy. So to get up and just physically do something and walk with your people, the people that believe in the same things that you, just people that care about something that's important to the world, is just a beautiful, meaningful, soul enhancing thing to do, the right thing to do. I'm just thinking back to that day. I'm gonna take a sip of a drink quickly. That's good. What did I think? What did I feel that day? So it was a hot day here in Brighton. I'd watched all of the protests and everything that was happening in the US around that time. I had spoken about George Floyd on my first podcast just briefly towards the end, and I'd been thinking long and hard about my own education, on my own action, and my own place in the world, and my own position on everything that has happened to the black community. Obviously, I thought about, like everyone else did, I thought about everything that's important to me, and I put everything in context that's important to me, and I wish I'd stood up for. But now was the time to stand up for black people and black friends, and black family for me, and the black community that I support, and just being a hip hop fan. And this is where today's episode title comes from. But just being a part of hip hop culture, or enjoying hip hop culture for me since the age of 12, maybe 13, so 20 years. For me, it's there was a sign that stood out to me. So being an advertiser at a protest full of 10, 15,000 people, your mind wanders. I'm thinking so many crazy things. I'm thinking about COVID. I'm thinking about George Floyd. I'm thinking about Breonna Taylor. I'm thinking about everything. The good, the bad, the indifferent, the things that are curious to me. But one thing as a marketer that I can't take my eyes off of is copywriting. It's really strange. So even then, in the midst of all of that and all of those emotions and all of that, all of everyone else's emotions, and you're walking in a sea of emotions, I still couldn't turn my mind off of copywriting and people's signs and words. That was fascinating and amazing to me. And there were so many amazing signs and so many amazing messages, and a lot of which have been shared on social media as well, from all of the protests around the world. And I saw some crazy, stupid things as well. I'm pretty certain that I saw some Ross Kemp things. I'm pretty certain I did. It's like the Mitchell brothers are against racism. I'm pretty certain I saw that. I'm pretty certain I saw one that said Jessica Lange should be here. I think something like that. Maybe it was an American Horror Story reference. Anyway, the one thing that stood out to me was someone who had written on their sign, "You can't have the rhythm without the blues." You can't have the rhythm without the blues. And that was something for me that resonated. For me personally, you cannot take the good from black culture and commercialize it, or talk about it, or promote it, or appropriate it, or any of this stuff. You shouldn't. And you can't do that and just ignore the blues, and ignore the suffering, and ignore what's happening in front of our eyes. You can't. You can't have the rhythm without the blues. And so that stuck with me. That stuck with me that day. It stuck with me as kind of a motto in my attitude towards everything. It's something maybe maybe there's a little bit of guilt there in me. But more than anything, it's just motivation. It's a reminder. The way in which it was written, it was a reminder to me, and I think to a lot of people. But that's something I'm going to take forward in life. Black lives still matter. They may have moved away from our feeds, but there's a lot that I'm looking at myself for. There's a lot that I'm educating myself on, continued now. And I say that because it needs to be habit for me. It can't be optional. And that's something I've learned. And that's something I'm going to take towards the black community and other communities too. But right now we're talking about the black community. And so that's the thing that I need to upskill and educate myself on very quickly. And so I need to take the time to do that. And all I can do to other people and for other people is encourage them to do that too. And actually not only encourage them, direct them to books, to resources. And you can reach out to me if you need to know where to start. And for some reason, you motherfucker, you can't use Google. Right. So, the protest. So, what else stood out to me? It was peaceful. I didn't really get the chance. I don't know. I guess it wasn't about that, but the songs weren't good. What else was good? I think just the diversity of people was amazing to see. In a primarily white place. Well, I guess number one, it was good to see so many white people come out. Young people is what stood out to me. Younger than me. That really stood out to me. That gave me a lot of hope. People in their teens and 20s just looking around me, masks on, signs up, sweltering heat, chanting. Chanting is the wrong word. Chanting isn't right. Shouting, protesting, kind of pleading for people to hear and listen to George Floyd's name, to Breonna Taylor, to stand together and shout that Black Lives Matter and believe it, and for people to hear it. I saw no trouble. I did see a lot of I don't know what the idiots, twats. I saw a group of them in Brighton, but we're talking. I was amazed in a protest of around 10 to 15,000 people, maybe about 20 fat white guys. So who were protesting the protest, which was just dumb. So all in all, it was a great experience to walk with these people. It was the right thing to do. It did make me quite emotional at the time, thinking, and I think coincide with that. And I don't think I covered this on my first podcast, but another thing that was really powerful, which is there's lots that maybe has made me feel emotional, but very little that has maybe brought me to tears or near tears. And the other thing alongside this, which might not have been that long after, it might have even been on the day of the first protest, but it was Dave Chappelle's special where he's in Ohio. I can't remember what he's got this whole summer camp thing, and he released this 30-minute special, and that was really emotional to see him speaking that way too. And I'd highly recommend that. I'll link to that in the show notes for anyone that's not seen it as well. What else happened in that? So after the pandemic, I washed a lot. I washed myself. I probably washed myself in Dettol. I think I shaved my whole body. It was not fun to be out in a pandemic, but it was necessary. So I guess that was the first time that I was out in a pandemic. And then it was months before I went out properly again. I only went out recently in a pandemic. It's weird, isn't it? It's weird how I'm still not comfortable in going to restaurants, in going to bars, in meeting up with lots of people. It's going to have to be an ease back into society for me whenever that eventually happens. I don't think like other people, particularly in the UK, are taking it seriously. the mask usage doesn't seem to be particularly high where I am. The social distancing is kind of non-existent. So that's awkward. And then you go to like a bar, and I went to a place that Sophie was DJing, and it was all sitting down, and there was no dancing. So that's weird. It's like, why are you there? You can just be at home. No dancing. There's no kind of singing at the moment. There's not a lot of enjoyment in being out. And like I said, then you've got these crazy masks that are just. I'm pro mask usage, but they make my face it just irritates my face. I swear I'm going to lose like 20 pounds off my face. I'm going to look gaunt by the end of this because the weight it's shaving off my face. Just through mask usage, that little face sauna, that little lava cloth. I saw a lot of people speak about the Black Lives Matter movement during the protest or after the protest. I don't know. I'm thinking about the thing that, and I spoke to a company recently that specializes in Gen Z feedback, ideas, and marketing. There's a great podcast for the internet marketing podcast that I host for Site Visibility, and we were speaking on Gen Z and what they are looking for from brands in 2020, and we started to speak about just Black Lives Matter, female empowerment, and movements. I guess meaningful movements, things that are moving us beyond what we've been subject to for the last 50 years, 60 years, 100 years, however long it is. Systemic or societal abnormalities, inexcusable things that have happened, which people are no longer putting up with. And there have been these movements in the past, and it feels like something's different this time. And I think it feels that way for a lot of people. And I think a lot of people are asking themselves what feels different. Honestly, and very embarrassingly, with Black Lives Matter, it's really embarrassing to say this, but there's something in Black people protesting this time. It took for Black people to protest, and it took for Black people and the Black community to. It took just this kind of last ditch, last gasp effort to wake white people up. That's what it feels like to me. And I can only thank them enough. It's just embarrassing to say. But that's what it took for me. And then it took a generational movement, and I spoke about this on the podcast, but it's no longer acceptable to just be superficial and say I support this or I support that. You have to take action. That's the biggest thing. You have to take action and show that you're taking action, because if you show you're taking action, that will level up, that will educate the next person, regardless of their color, their background. It will educate them. So you have to take action. You have to speak out. It can no longer be swept under the carpet. There's something generationally different. And I really believe that. And I think that's a great thing for the world. And I think it's a crazy thing for the world. And I think it's just going to be very meaningful for the younger generation and for my generation in millennials. It's going to be core to our lives. And it's going to be core to marketing. That's why I guess I'm talking about it as well. As a brand, the only phrase that I can use, that I keep using, is you cannot be superficial about these things. People have to believe it comes from your spirit. If you're speaking out in support of something, people will see through it if it's superficial, and you best believe that. So yeah, I've went to a protest. I I've been at not that much to Sophie's DJ things maybe a couple of times, and then I'm just staying in because it's a hot, crazy world. Can you believe there are people out here complaining about wearing masks when like hundreds of thousands of people are dying? I feel like I need to eliminate this from my vocabulary, but I'm no longer shocked by the behavior of people. People really are as dumb, and there are people in this world that are really as dumb as you think they are. And it's so hard to believe. I guess particularly for optimists. It's so hard to believe. But there are really people that dumb. I don't know whether they're brainwashed by politics, by media, by a combination of those things, lack of education, lack of exposure to the real world. There appears to be two different types of humans. And I guess you know how there's the quote about people can only use 1% of their brains, or whatever it is, or people can only access 1%. I think there are just a whole generation of people out there, a whole breed of people that can just use 0.25% of their brains. And that's it, then they're maxed out. And they just don't have access. That's what I like to think. For whatever reason, they're just a new type of human. And they just can't access the rest of the 75%. That's the only explanation. How can so many people have such stupid, hurtful views? It's just crazy to me. Such a waste of time. So anyway, that's been really surprising to me. And that's another reason that I don't really want to go out that much. So I've been working from home. Oh man, working from home has been so good for me. Working from home is such a big topic at the moment, such an important topic as well. My view on it is it's pretty easy to digest. I think if you can work from home, which a lot of us can, if you're a business owner, you should explore that flexibility for your staff. There is no reason not to. The only reason we're in this 9 to 5, 7.5 hour a week, all be in one office type scenario, from my awareness, my knowledge, it comes from the Industrial Revolution where people were trained to be in factories that amount of hours a day. Then the school system mirrored the Industrial Revolution in terms of kids were then trained to sit for 7.5 hours a day at school, so that then that trained them for when they went to their factory jobs in life. And it's outdated, it's archaic. That's not the world anymore. And I just think that I talked at the beginning of this podcast that there's only one thing, the one truth that we all have in common is that this pandemic is bringing us closer to what's important to us all. But I also think that it's accelerating so many things in society, the things that are meaningful or not, and just making us aware of them, making us take a step back and think, well, that's stupid. That doesn't need to happen. We don't need to go back to that. There's a big reset button in the world. And someone that ate a bat and pressed it, I think. So working from home, where do I stand? For me personally, it's been amazing. I have a better work-life balance. This is one thing: exercise. Exercise is so important to productivity and mental well-being. And now I can fit exercise into my daily routine every single day. Easier. I could do it before. I had to wake up a little bit earlier. Maybe I fit it in my lunch break. But now I can do it. Forced exercise, this is a big difference. Forced exercise is much different. I need to take a drink on this point. Oh, that's good. Forced exercise is so much different for me to relaxed exercise. When I exercise, I want to be in a flow state. I want that to be the only thing that I'm focused on. I want to just not care about where I am. I just want to end up soaking wet at the end of it and satisfied with my muscles aching and a smile on my face. That's all I care about. I don't want to be thinking, oh, I've got an hour to fit in here, or I've got to get home, get changed, or shower here, shower there. I don't want that. I picked up so for I think from what I'm speaking to people about, exercise has been the number one thing that has made a big difference. People are managing to explore their health a little bit more. And I think if you have healthy employees, physically healthy employees, we know that physical health can help with mental health. And then those two things combined are going to help with productivity. There's just no doubt. So that's been the biggest thing for me personally, and I've seen that in other people too. So there is that part. And then there's, for me, where do you draw your energy and motivation from? I am self-motivated, self-sufficient. I don't need other people for energy. In fact, when I'm around lots of people, that drains my energy. So being in an office environment is actually quite draining for me. It's just who I am. It just is the build up, whether it's biology or psychology or the middle ground that no one sees. That is me. And I know so many other people like it. So for me, I've flourished working from home. I'm actually communicating, I think, far more effectively with people than ever before. I'm happier in myself. I feel like I'm communicating clearer. And I feel like I've got more energy. And I feel my productivity has increased. I've seen that in other people. I've seen other people flourish. Now, it's not for everyone, of course. I talked about my energy coming from inside of me. Some people get their energy from other people. Now, I like to refer to them as energy vampires, which probably isn't nice, but that's who they are. And yeah, they get energy from other people. They like being around other people. So it's going to be hard for them. And I think everyone's finding that the happy medium, if you can, is to find, and again, it depends on your business model, your business vision. And I think that's something else that we're all exploring. But if your business model allows, if your business vision allows, you have to explore this extra flexibility. Do it not only for employees, but do it for the future. Do it for the economy. Do it to deconstruct the societal norms that I was just talking about. Because that will breed a whole new generation of creativity, of mental well-being. Good things can only come of that. That's where I'm at with working from home. I do feel sorry for the people that have had to adapt, that do get their energy from other people. I do think we need to look out for those people. We need to speak to those people regularly. We need to find a system of, whether it's socially distancing or, maybe there's a way we need to find a system for those people too. I'm probably not the best person that's placed to provide that advice. So you need to be conscious of those people too. But overall, it's the flexibility for everyone that I think needs to be explored. And I think you've got to ask yourself, if you're not exploring that, why? The only things that it comes down to for me are control. So wanting to know where your employees are. Yeah, and that's it, actually. And I don't know that control has ever been, I'm just trying to think, has control ever been a thread to a successful leader or business? Has it been the single driver? I'm not sure that it has. I think vision has. I think adaptation has. So adaptation and flexibility. I don't know that control is. So that's where I'm at in terms of working from home. So that's something that I've been experiencing. Just a little in terms of so I talked then about health and actually about exercise. So I got this Xiaomi walking pad. There are a few different models of the Xiaomi walking pad. I have kind of a mid-tier model, which allows for kind of light jogging, but it's a good speed for me. It's kind of the low end of what I'd like to be doing, and I'm doing it regularly. And what I'll do is I'll throw on UFC, and there's been loads of UFC events recently. That's a whole other podcast. And I'll run during fights, and then it's kind of like interval training during once the fights are over, once the decision's been announced. That's when I'll walk for a little bit, and I'll do that for a couple of hours. That's what I've just finished doing this evening. And I just think that's if you're at home and whether it's a walking pad that you want to invest in or an exercise bike, a good little challenge for you in terms of interval training. Not that you have to watch mixed martial arts, but maybe you have a favorite program and you can watch like a scene, or you can watch or listen to a chapter. So just align your intervals with chapters or scenes or episodes. That's something that's really helped me. So maybe it helped you too. So that's been interesting. And what else have I been experiencing? The only other thing I've been experiencing, which I talked about a little bit, is podcasting. So having recorded so many podcasts, I've experienced so many different characters, so many different reactions to the pandemic, people doing amazing creative things during the pandemic, people that are just really struggling during the pandemic, where it's affected people's livelihoods. I've had to get myself really organized. It's been a non-stop cycle for me of research, structuring episodes, interviewing, editing, publishing, and then doing that for the last 8 weeks or so. Non-stop. What have I learned though? I've learned that I was capable. Maybe there was a part of me deep down. Here's the part of me that I'm not. I've just talked. I'm not naturally a people person. Being around people physically, particularly lots of people, drains me. But that doesn't mean that I'm not curious about people. I think perhaps with my character, it means that I can come off as rude, maybe aloof, definitely odd, definitely. But it doesn't really hurt my feelings when I think that people might think that. It doesn't annoy me. I don't really ever focus on it, but I'm conscious of it. I guess that's what the thing. I'm conscious of it. So because I'm conscious of it, there must have been something in my mind when I was coming into this podcasting and interviewing. I thought, I'm not naturally a people person. Will I be able to break down people's barriers quickly, create a trusting environment, and just allow them to have, allow people to have great conversations with me and show them that I care? Do I have a voice that will enable them to feel like I care? So that was a lot of challenges for me. Maybe a lot of maybe an aspect of confidence that I hadn't ever thought about. But I feel like I'm overcoming. I've not overcome it entirely yet. I've still had some episodes where it's been kind of really tricky at the beginning, and I have to kind of. I guess that's what I like about it, though. In an episode, I have to my episodes that I record are anywhere between 30 minutes and an hour and a half at the moment, and in that short space of time, it's like a game for me. It's like if ever you played the game Need for Speed, you're going at 100 miles an hour and you're trying to navigate all these twists and turns without crashing. And it's a thrill to try and get through and kind of get to someone, not even get to someone's core, to get them to share things that they haven't before, but to find a route of conversation that you both find interesting. And sometimes you'll touch upon a topic and it's just gold and you're both interested, or you'll touch upon a topic that's really interesting to the guest. It's music to my ears when guests say to me, "That's a really good question." I love hearing that. That's been amazing for me to hear. So I'm finding out a lot about that. Through that, in terms of what I'm learning, I talked about interviewing techniques. So I've been watching a lot of interviews. I took a masterclass in what was it? 2 masterclass. One was, this is from masterclass.com, which, by the way, I highly recommend. If only because it gives you really unique and interesting theoretical frameworks that you can apply to life. practically, what are you going to get from people with all of this experience? It's really difficult to break down the practical elements sometimes, though some of the masterclasses that I've been a part of have been really highly practical. But what I really get from it is kind of frameworks that I think to myself, I can apply that to what I'm doing. So I've taken 2 masterclasses recently, which sometimes I learn new things, and sometimes it just cements it helps reinforce the direction that I already wanted to take, and that's good too sometimes. So one was Robin Roberts, who's a broadcaster in the US. She teaches a masterclass on, I think it's effective communication is what it's called. And she's hosted interviews. She's been an anchor on ESPN. She's a host of Good Morning America. And she teaches I think it's effective communication with authenticity, something like that, which is really important to me as well. I don't just want to interview. I don't just want to learn interview techniques. I want people to feel like the questions are coming from somewhere in me that's curious and meaningful. And so that's important for me to communicate authentically. And then the second one, which was more of a journalistic angle, was Bob Woodward, who's I'd say he's a journalist, but more of a political journalist, who was at the forefront of the Watergate scandal in the US. And that was a great masterclass in research and interview techniques. So I've been kind of using those to help guide me in some instances, and maybe trying to apply some of the lessons, or just using it to build my confidence when interviewing other people. So I've been learning that. I've been learning how to edit. Man, shout out to all of the sound engineers there in the world. I do not know how you do it. That is such a hard job. I'm learning basic editing for podcasts at the moment. And that means, clipping noise, learning a little bit more about frequencies, inputs, outputs, trimming, basic stuff. And that is really difficult. For every hour that I record, I think I spent almost triple that in editing. And nobody sees that work. And you think of all these, you think of something like, I'll reference it, the Joe Rogan Experience, just because I know they're long podcasts. I know they're recorded live, actually, that's a bad example. But for all the people out there that are recording podcasts and editing them, it's a hell of a lot of work. So shout out to the sound engineers, give them a pay rise. And also, if you're asking, do not ask, if you're a business owner, man, you cannot ask, if you're a business owner, CEO, whatever position you're in, a senior leadership figure, you cannot just ask your marketing manager you can't expect high quality, polished podcasting as part of someone's job without giving them either more money, more time, or cutting some of their responsibilities. It's a full-time job if you're releasing an episode a week, or maybe not a full-time job, but a part-time job. There's getting guests, booking guests, like I said, the research to create great podcasts. Right now we're experiencing a podcast boom. It's maybe the 3rd or 4th boom in podcasting history. So there are loads of podcasts being born. But it's kind of like how blogging took off in the mid-2000s or 2010s, if that's a phrase. Yes, there are lots of blogs. There's lots of shit out there. But if you really want a top quality podcast that's got a different angle on it, that's really meaningful to your niche, you have to invest the time into it. And it's not easy. It requires real care, real curiosity, and a lot of time. And there's no way around that. And that's what I've been focused on, actually. I've been not so worried about being the best podcaster, having necessarily the best sound just yet. I've been trying to gradually improve my recording and my editing skills. But I've tried to double down on the things that I care about most and think that I'm the best at. And by the best, I mean the best for me. So the things that I think that I can do really well at if I keep learning. And that's the researching and the actual episode interviewing aspect. If I can do those 2 things really well and become the best interviewer possible, I think that is going to result in great episodes. So that's where I'm doubling down and spending a lot of my time in terms of learning. So I've been doing a lot of research. Again, I'm interviewing people that are really, people that have, some of them have their own podcasts, some of them have books, some of them have spoken at conferences, TED Talks, just done amazing things in their career. To try and condense all of that research, I'm reading books on people that I'm interviewing. And I want to make sure that I've read their books. I've listened to their podcasts. I've watched their TED Talks. So that's all a lot of research time. And that's probably the thing that was also a little bit nerve-wracking for me coming into podcasting. How do I find that time? But also, am I willing to do it? And I'm still struggling. I'm still finding my feet in terms of knowing the balance, how much to research, when to lay off the research to let an episode flow in a natural way, and for it not to be so structured that it's so that it's inauthentic really to me. And that's still something that I'm finding my feet on, but I'm enjoying the process, and I think that's the most important thing. So that's something else that I've been learning. What else what have I seen? What have I been watching? I just think I spoke on this just a moment ago, but people finding themselves is still amazing. Who did I see? Just on LinkedIn, and I've spoken about LinkedIn a little bit in the past. I don't love it, but I do find interesting people on there doing just with amazing stories, and there are just people building businesses overnight at the moment, and it's just such a creative world where you can work for a day and turn that idea, that passion, into a viable business within a day. You can do that. People are doing that. And so I think that's really inspiring to me. That's made me get off my arse. That's made me record this podcast. It's made me speak to other people. It's made me develop other projects that I've been working on, some of which I'm probably going to share on this podcast. And as I've said before, some I probably won't share because I do think, just for me, I need to keep some of that inside of me before I'm willing to share it. I think it's a creative process that I need to go through. But I've been seeing lots of people working on their art, working on their creativity, launching podcasts, working on their books, promoting their books, actually podcasting, just being on podcasts. I was speaking to a guy recently, and he said that he's replaced all of his webinar activity with podcasting because he gets the same level of response in terms of engagement. And for him as a guest, it was far less of a time investment than webinars. So he's been just on a podcast tour. Actually, there's a great video from James Mulvaney, one of the guys that I interviewed. He's the owner of podcast.co, founder of podcast.co. And he went on a 30 podcasts in 30 days podcast tour. And I'm seeing a lot more emphasis on using podcasts to promote art or projects or services at the moment. So that's been really interesting, watching that. What about sports? Is anything interesting happening in sports? I won't speak too much about sports on this particular podcast, but is there anything that can be applicable to advertising? Yeah, I think it was it just shows you how much money is in football. I think it was the BBC. No, who was it? I think the FA had to give £25 million back to the BBC because of I think it was one of maybe the FA Cup or one of the cups, because the amount of advertising revenue that wouldn't be generated because they sacrificed one of the legs. That was amazing to read. UFC has been amazing. So the UFC, and actually this is really important. So aside from mixed martial arts, right now hobbies are so important again to people's health, to their well-being, to their happiness. So regardless of what people's hobbies are, and regardless of what your opinions are on the coronavirus, I think we should or could all agree that in general, if there's a way for sport in particular to run and be televised, that's a good thing for us. It's a good thing for the athletes. It's a good thing for the economy. Certainly a good thing for advertising. I think we can agree that. And there are some sports that have done it well. So the NBA seems to have done it reasonably well. The UK, just Premier League, seems to have done amazingly well. Lots of testing. No signs of players infecting other players and so forth. And the UFC have done it amazingly well. So the UFC hosted a series of events on Yas Island in Abu Dhabi that allowed them to fly international fighters in from different places in the world to this island because they couldn't fly into other countries due to restrictions. So they all went to this island. They all were tested several times, I think, before they fought. Anyone that tested positive was sent back home. And it just seems to, for me, it's something that I like watching. It helps me relax. I exercise whilst watching it. And it's good for my well-being. And to not have that right now would be difficult. And there are so many sports that are important for people's well-being that I think in general, if we can get sports back, people playing, people watching, I think that's good for everyone. So I've been really impressed by those particular companies, those particular brands or businesses or corporations, whatever you want to discuss, leagues, those sports. I know that Major League Baseball is really struggling, and I can't remember why that is. I think it's because there's a lot more travel involved. I think the basketball teams are still, the baseball teams, there's still a lot of travel involved. I need to look into that. But I know baseball's really struggling. And if there's a sport like that, this is where I think the line needs to be drawn. If there's a sport like that that's clearly struggling, they shouldn't be proceeding how they are. They need to stop, reassess, and then think about what they're going to do. So, I guess that's what I've seen. I've just seen more togetherness as well. I really have seen that. More people looking out for each other, encouraging hobbies, encouraging well-being, encouraging learning. But maybe that's just the circle that I roll in. Because at a world level, it feels like that all we see is the opposite of what I've just said. Is people split down the middle, right or left wing. And that's on my mind a lot at the moment as well. It seems like no one can meet in the middle any longer. Just for a day. So maybe that's what I'm seeing too. What am I listening to? What am I hearing? I'll move to Spotify. So I was on Amazon Music HD. It's a great platform. But I guess let me explain. So for those who haven't seen, Spotify launched an amazing new service called Spotify Duo. So if you've got a partner and I was on Amazon Music HD, Sophie was using Spotify, we were paying like upwards of £25 a month or something for the two separate services. So I consolidated, joined Spotify in this Duo deal, cost about £13 a month. So not only is it a money save, but then it kind of combines your playlist and your listening history into partner orientated content on the platform. It's just an amazing service, and I've known for a long time. I don't know why it took me so long to jump ship, because Spotify is far ahead. Apart from, and because I'm a big hip hop fan, Tidal has got a lot of amazing original content on that platform. But Spotify, in terms of features and functionality, is just so far ahead, in my experience, from what I've seen of Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon Music Unlimited, and the rest. So I've jumped ship to Spotify. To be honest, it's still overwhelming for me. There's so many features, so I'm just getting used to all of that at the moment. Maybe what I'll do, actually, that's a good thought. I'll probably at some point take all of the music that I play on this podcast for the intro and outro music, and I'll put that into a playlist. So for anyone that's looking for kind of lo-fi hip hop orientated music to listen to, I'll curate that into playlists. Maybe I'll do that once a quarter, something maybe biannually, something like that. That's a good idea. I need to write that down. Pop Smoke. I listen to Pop Smoke. This is crazy. So, do I want to talk about this? Is it? Yeah, it kind of is related to advertising or marketing. This is how crazy the world is. So there's a young rapper, Pop Smoke, who was 21 years old, and he was shot in February of this year. He had maybe one album and a mixtape out in 2019 and early 2020, and then I think it was his second album. It might have been his debut. Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon was released after he died. He was working on it, and it maybe was near completion when he died in February. It was released, I'm going to say 6 weeks ago. I need to take a drink. So yeah, it's hip hop. What else? And how did he die? This is where social media is crazy. So he had, back in February, I think he had just been shooting a music video. I might have that wrong, but he flashed. I can't remember. He flashed either money or something flamboyant on Instagram. I can't remember the medium. I can't remember exactly what it was, but essentially he was flashing his cash a little bit on Instagram. I think it was, and I think it was on an Instagram story. Now, unfortunately, what he did is he showed all of this cash on his Instagram story, and I think in the background of his Instagram story there was a box with a label which showed his home address. And a few hours later, that night, I think, he was shot. So people were putting two and two together, and I don't know if this has come out yet, but I'm pretty certain that what had happened is that these armed robbers, essentially murderers, had identified where he was living, knew he had a lot of cash on him, and killed him. How he was killed and how that played out, I don't know, but he died. And he was really, from what I've seen, and it's a younger generation. So Pop Smoke was 21. There was a lot surrounding Pop Smoke. If you know who Big L is, I think Pop Smoke had a lot in him and going for him that would have made him a generational talent. So that was heartbreaking. And it just, I guess, what's the lesson here? The lesson is be careful what you post on social media. Just be careful. We're so free. We're so open. We share so much around us that we do not think of the consequences. Should we have to? That's a different argument entirely. No, of course not. Everyone would like to think that we're in a society and an environment where we don't have to worry about those things, but we do. And so if you're someone who's live streaming your content, live streaming your day, taking lots of selfies, just be careful. Be careful who's around you. Be good to yourself. And that's the unfortunate lesson that I've taken from Pop Smoke's story. And I'm really sad about that. But I would recommend listening to his album because it's a great album to have blessed us with. There are some crazy lines. There's some great music. For me, it feels like the almost like the mystique, the somberness surrounding his death reminds me a lot of Big L. Stylistically, they're very different, but there's a feeling about them both. The once in a generation type talent feeling about them both, which reminds me of Big L. But just in terms of style, it's like 50 Cent. And 50 Cent actually executive produces a lot of the records, maybe even the entire album. Yeah, it's like listening to a modern day Get Rich or Die Trying. So if you like that album, go listen to that. What else I've been listening to? Run the Jewels 4 that was released. again, what did they done something great in terms of promotion, which I wanted to recommend. I think they released it. I need to maybe Google this. Run the jewels release. Let's see if I can find it as I Google it. They wanted to release it early because of what was happening in the pandemic. So they released it early, saying "fuck it, why wait," which was amazing. But they did something different. I can't remember what they did. The world was infected with bullshit, and so they hoped that the album would bring their fans some joy. That was it. They gave it away for free. So I listened to a lot of that. That's great for running. I love that album. So I've been listening to Run the Jewels. Will Smith. Oh man, I could talk about Will Smith and the Jada Smith stuff. Actually, let's talk about that. So Will Smith released a new set of quarantine beats, lo-fi playlist music. I said all that wrong, but if you go to his YouTube, he's got a playlist of kind of quarantine beats, which is really fun to listen to. Oh man, let's talk about Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith for a moment. So there was the now infamous Red Table Talk. So short of it, if you're not familiar with it, is that Jada Pinkett Smith had been on a break from Will Smith, got herself caught up in what she calls was an entanglement with August. I can't pronounce his surname. What's his surname? I've forgotten it already. August Alsina. I actually don't know how to pronounce his surname. Anyway, August. She got himself caught up. She called it an entanglement. All the memes kind of followed. But what was interesting about that? So August had come out a couple of weeks prior, produced an interview with, I think it was Angela Yee, and talked about his involvement with Will Smith and Jada Pinkett Smith and all this kind of crazy stuff and what had been going on. And so their response, or Jada Pinkett and Will Smith's response to that whole situation, and this is where podcasting and just the medium of being your own media platform gives you such amazing creative control these days, is they came out, and Jada Pinkett Smith's got a really popular podcast. I'm going to call it a podcast. It's kind of a video channel. It's called Red Table Talk. And typically she interviews other people, but she brought herself to the table to talk about this experience with Will Smith. It was fascinating viewing. I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen it already. But the only reason I'm talking about it here is because at any other point, it was for me just a representation of how to control from a PR perspective the narrative of a media story in this environment these days. If you have a podcast, if you've inherited that time and investment into a loyal audience, if people are hanging on that word and you've built your brand and you've invested that time and you've created that one person or that media, your own media team, your own media environment, you can somewhat control the narrative from that point. And that's what they did. And they did it amazingly well. Again, everyone's got different opinions on the actual content. It was hilarious. The memes are brilliant. I felt heartbroken for Will Smith because he looked like a man in pain. That's just my perspective on him and the way he looked. But it was just a fascinating thing to watch unfold, and just a really good example of what you can do with video content from a PR perspective if you've got a situation surrounding you that you've not surfaced and that you need to control. Or that you want to control. That was amazing. So they had that platform. What else have I listened to? There was a great podcast. Was it great? Listen, it wasn't great. But if you want to kick back, you want to relax, maybe you want to have a little smoke, a little drink, loosen up a bit. There was a really funny podcast recorded between Joe Rogan and Post Malone. They both, I don't know what the phrase is, done mushrooms. What do you do? Listen, I'm not into psychedelics really, so I don't know what they did to the mushrooms, but the mushrooms entered their body. You know, we're not There's no conspiracy. They had mushrooms in their body. And they talked about aliens, chimps, all the stuff that really, I imagine, the places that mushrooms take you. And they'd done that for 4 hours. And it was just hilarious. So maybe if you're feeling stressed, you need something to unwind, pop that on, watch Joe Rogan and Post Malone, do a couple mushrooms, talk on a podcast. Again, there's just, when it comes to podcasting, there are no rules. That's the lesson I took from that. The only other thing that this is a revelation for me, actually. So this is crazy as well. This is a really important point. We have advertisers. We fucked the internet. We fucked it. There are too many ads. Too many. There are just too many ads. There are ads on every platform, on every format, on every medium. It's crazy. It's out of hand. We've done it. We need to do something about this. I'm going to note that down. I need to do something about this myself. I'm going to take this personally. How can it be, as a marketer, that I'm in an industry where now I'm sick of marketing? I'm sick of the ads that I'm seeing. I'm sick of the pop-ups. There is a point to this, by the way. Is that, and they got me. So I'm a Google One subscriber, and as part of being a Google One subscriber, I managed to get a 3-month trial to YouTube Premium. And YouTube Premium, actually, I don't know what all the benefits are, but the main benefit is that it's ad-free, no ads. I don't pay anything at the moment because it's a free trial. But I think it's like £13 a month, maybe £10 a month, maybe less. I can't really remember. And no ads. It's a fucking revelation to have no ads on videos on YouTube. Do you know how much it reduces stress? Here's something. I talked about well-being. Little things add up through the day. I'm all about making my day easier. If I could, I would invent something where I roll out of bed into my clothes for the day. I'm already clean. I just want to be seamless. I want to be like a fucking worm or a snail, something that just kind of slithers through the day, but a little bit more attractive, maybe. And that's what being ad-free gives me. And when you don't have that, it just adds up. That tension builds up. The little things that irritate you. I guess this is something that's important to me. A lot of people call these like life hacks, but there are lots of things that I do. This is why I think working from home is important. There are lots of things that I try to do or buy or invest in that just make my day that little bit easier, because and this is all about finding balance. Because there are so many things in life that I'm not good at controlling, that get out of hand, that I have to invest in them to actively pay attention to them to try and avoid. Anyway, so for me, I wouldn't say that I like being productive, and I hate it when I feel unproductive. And I'm impatient. I'm definitely impatient. So when I sit there and I have to queue, or I have to watch an ad before I watch a video, I'm impatient. I hate it. It irritates me. It gets my back up. And you just got to think, there's so much of that builds up through the day, that we fuck the internet and we're irritating people with ads. Think about that the next time before you create an ad. If it's a video piece of content, if it's an image ad, how are you going to not interrupt someone's day and actually put a smile on their face? Not how are you going to make them click the ad. Let's forget about that for a moment. How are you going to make not interrupting someone's activity worthwhile? That's a good reminder for me to think about. Because this is how crazy it is as a marketer. This is how morally conflicted I am in marketing right now. Is that I hate ads. I know that they make money. I know that you can convert people through advertising. I know it's important to sell goods and services, or not important. It's useful. But at the same time, I'm investing now, and I probably will be buying premium anti-ad technology. So that's the moral conflict that I guess is facing a lot of marketers. Certainly facing me. Anyway, on a side note, I'd recommend YouTube Premium because it's working really well for me. It's helping me avoid stress. And if anyone sends me a video now that's like not on not on YouTube, so maybe it's on Facebook. Facebook have started adding these ads into the middle of their videos. I'm not on Facebook that much, but that's crazy to me. One thing, just in terms of podcast advertising, is the programmatic ads are crazy. I hate them. So I'm much more of a fan of the sponsored red ads, even if they are a little bit more irritating. At least you can skip them, particularly on YouTube. What else have I listened to? The only other thing podcast-wise, there are two things that stand out to me. One is the Mafia podcast, which I think I referenced on the first episode. That it's just, if you're into, here's the thing actually, if you've watched or are about to watch Fear City on Netflix, which is about New York, I think it is New York actually. It's New York mob. It's the New York mob and their activity and their life and their goings on. Well, listen to that, but alongside Mafia, and it will really enhance your watching experience. So take a listen to Mafia and watch that alongside Fear City. I really recommend doing that. What else have I listened to? I interviewed this guy. He's a fascinating guy. He's not particularly well known or anything, but he's a guy by the name of Alex Williams. He's a young guy from Canada, and the podcast episode is coming out shortly. And he's just been investing so much of his time in podcasting, in lots of different podcasts that are orientated around his family members, and then a couple that are outside of his family. Anyway, he's just full-time podcasting and do all these crazy creative things. And one podcast that he's recorded is like a fantasy world in which guests come on and dictate the future of this fantasy world in a podcast format. It's so hard to explain, but it's such a creative way to do podcasting. And it really blew my mind when I still haven't understood the concept entirely, and I've only listened to a few episodes. But I spoke to that guy. I loved speaking to Alex. A shout out to you, Alex, if you're listening. I'm really looking forward to releasing that episode. That'll come out soon, probably in the next month. But anyway, I've listened to a lot of Alex's podcasts, and I really enjoyed them. I just think he made me realize and actually motivated and has inspired me to take a look at what's going on around me and turn that into podcast format, both as a lesson and learning exercise for myself, but then also in an effort to be resourceful and to not over analyze the difficulty in creating podcasts. And that's not meant to be insulting, because his episodes are really well structured, well thought out, take a lot of time, but he takes relatively, I guess, concepts that are right under his nose and has turned them into podcasts that are useful and interesting. And I just think that's amazing. So loved speaking with him. So that's what I've listened to as well. What else? What have I watched that's important to marketing? Not so important in terms of, well, actually, it's fairly important to the promotion in terms of movie advertising. But I watched King of Staten Island, which was with, what's the guy's name? Bill Burr and Pete. I'm going to have to Google his name. Oh, shit, what's that? Pete Rose? Nah, that doesn't feel right. Pete Rose. I'm going to have to Google this. King of Staten Island. Pete Davidson. So Pete Davidson is the lead. Well, how would I describe the story? It's basically, it is a coming of age film, but not for a young adult, not a kid. But it's also there's a lot of his personal story weaved in to the movie. I'm a big Bill Burr fan, so I love the role that he played. I won't give too much of the story away, but there's a thread related to mental health that is tied in through the story. It's actually not just tied in. For me, that's what came out at the forefront of the story. But anyway, it's a really heartwarming. That's the only way to describe it. Heartwarming film. So I'd recommend it for that. It's funny in parts, just an emotional film to watch. But the interesting part, as far as I'm aware, is it went straight to, I think it was Amazon Prime. So we're seeing a lot of that in the movie industry, and in general, we're going to be in the film industry. There's drive-in theaters, which seem to have mixed reviews at the moment, depending on where you're showing up. And then there's just so much straight to video on demand content, and maybe that's a good thing, maybe that's a bad thing. And actually thinking about it, I talked about I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's Quick Bites, Quibi, which I started to use a couple of months ago, and that's a really good example for me of it's kind of well produced content, but it's not really that strong in terms of story, and it's kind of throwaway. And so I don't think I'll be investing too much in the Quibi content moving forward. It's just going to be a really interesting time. I guess the question that I'm posing is the straight to video on demand. Well, here's a couple of things. The fact that more content is going to go direct to video on demand will mean there are lots more advertising dollars spent in the movie industry in different areas. You're not going to have, as far as I'm aware, why would you invest in billboards right now? That's typical for movie advertising, right? You're not going to have that. You're not going to have in theater advertising. You're not going to have where do all of those offline dollars go? They're going to be reinvested into podcasts. They're going to be reinvested into the media that people are paying attention to right now. So there's going to be a real battle for, and I've talked about this in context of movies, but I guess it's anything in the performing arts sector where you've got a real shift right now of advertising budget and where it's spent. And it's all going to go online. Because why wouldn't it? So I think it's going to be really competitive, really difficult for marketers. It's going to be really fun in terms of creativity. In theory, there was a real worry about not being able to find more business in this pandemic. But actually, I just think you have to pay attention to sectors like that, where the advertising budget is shifted. Think about societal shifts. Think about people's eyeballs. Think about the things that would be traditionally advertised offline and follow the trend of where that's going online. And then I think you're in a good place. So anyway, King of Staten Island, great movie. And then I watched Unsolved Mysteries as well. That kept me up at night. If you haven't watched Unsolved Mysteries, that's on Netflix. It's tales of murder and UFOs. And the only thing that tying that into marketing and what's fascinating is that now people are so invested in Netflix, particularly this boom in true crime, which is amazing for me to have followed as a trend. But it's the response from people who then, as we've seen with Don't Fuck with Cats on Netflix, it's people that then invest their time in tracking down and in spending their own time picking up the stories once the stories have ended on TV. This isn't now, a mystery where you get one episode and you move on to the next episode next week. This is the episode ends and the story gets picked up on social media. The story extends beyond the original medium. So, and that's exactly what's happened with Unsolved Mysteries. There are social media Reddit threads related to how people might have been murdered, things that they've spotted in the episodes. And there's information that's being picked up from places like Reddit that's then getting put back into law enforcement as potential clues to help with investigations. What an amazing and crazy place to be in terms of social media and the internet and how that ties in with true crime. And Unsolved Mysteries is just a great example of that. What else? What else is going on? I guess breaking some things down in marketing. What's been going on in marketing? I guess you've got the TikTok ban. I don't really think much about that. I think that's unfortunate. I think Microsoft are probably, if by the time I don't even know if at this point they've bought it, but I think Microsoft were going to try and buy TikTok so that it still continues in the US. So that's been interesting. Again, I've spoken on a couple of podcasts about TikTok. You definitely need to be paying attention to the platform if you're not, even if you're not on it yourself. It's where the next generation are. It's where a lot of creativity is happening. Invest your time there and enjoy it. Have fun with it. Just watching, if you're just watching, just sign up for an account and just enjoy it. I personally enjoy a lot of the TikToks. It gives me a throwback to Vine. I was a big Vine fan. It's kind of made me nostalgic for Vine, but I'm happy with this kind of spiritual successor. So that's where I'm at with TikTok. But TikTok's not for me in terms of content. I'm actually speaking to someone. I think you pronounce her name. Oh, I wish I could remember her name. She's from Life Up Education TV. I think you pronounce her name Natsumi. Natsuni. I can't remember. I'm gonna have to speak to her. But she spends a lot of time on TikTok, so I'm looking forward to speaking to her a little bit about her TikTok marketing. That's coming up in a couple of weeks' time. There's been the Facebook ad boycott. My position on this is really simple. I think it's a great thing that people are standing up for what they're believing in, but common sense has to prevail, particularly in a pandemic. So this is where it comes to your data analyst and your analytic skills. Know your numbers. Know whether you can afford to boycott Facebook or not. Don't sacrifice your business in a pandemic for your livelihood or the livelihood of your staff if you're spending advertising money on Facebook and you're making a return on it. Why would you do that? Just plan or plot your escape from Facebook. That would be my recommended advice. But the only way you can do that is if you know your numbers, you know what's generating your revenue. So that's why you need to invest in your data analyst or upskill yourself. So I think that's my position on the Facebook ad boycott. Some of these brands that have led the boycott are in a position to do so because they have well-established brands and revenue streams already. That's my only real thought on that. I talked a little bit about offline spend and pushing that into online. Online conferences, events is still a crazy world being experimented with. I think a lot of us are tired from Zoom calls and webinars. There was that immediate want or desire to jump on them all, see what people were doing. And the truth is, there haven't been too many creative breakthroughs. Actually, what's come to the surface at this time is not anything to do with webinars or online conferences. It's Twitch. If you want to see the creativity in how people are mastering online communication, spend some time on Twitch. The people that are hosting on Twitch Twitch has moved beyond just a gaming platform at this point. Leading the way both for esports, there are conferences, Q&As. I really do think that with a little bit of a change in marketing strategy and possibly maybe I don't know how they're going to do this, but I'm seeing the slow development of Twitch into a medium for me that will compete and probably is competing actually already with Zoom, with GoToMeeting, with Slack, and those platforms, and just as a more general online communication solution, as opposed to just a gaming communication platform. So that's something that's really interesting to me, though. And the other thing, and I'm right in the middle of this, so I can't really share too much information about it, but I'm paying attention to Triller. Triller. And the reason this came about for me is I'm a martial arts fan, a combat sports fan, and this is the platform in which Mike Tyson, I'm pretty certain this is the platform that Mike Tyson's return exhibition fight is going to be streamed on, or at least they're sponsoring it or something. And then I took a look, and I'm actually going to Google this right now. I can't remember what the investment was. It was crazy money. Triller. So Triller is an entertainment platform built for creators, a social video community where you can show the world who you are by capturing flawless videos. So I didn't know about this, but it's got 65 million users, over 250 million downloads, founded in 2015. And I only found out about it because of the investment in the Mike Tyson fight. Can't really find anything about it, but essentially it seems like it's kind of like it's being compared a lot to TikTok, but it seems to be a more polished, premium kind of alternative. That's the only way I can describe it so far from what I've seen. But my eyes are there. My attention's going to be there. I'm going to be spending time on Triller. I'm probably going to buy that pay-per-view, so I'll be getting to learn a lot more about Triller from my exploration of that anyway. So pay attention to Triller. That would be my only other advice, and particularly what's happening in sports for those. That might be it. I've been speaking for a while. My cat's just come back in. We've both cooled down at this point. Man, I spoke about it a lot. As soon as you get talking, and as soon as you explore your thoughts, it just lowers my heart rate. It's made me feel calmer. It's made me feel cooler. There is so much else related to marketing that I've been exploring at this time. To be honest, one of the best things that I can recommend in terms of specific tips and advice, I'd love you to listen to the episodes that I've recorded here for the advertising hour. I'm also host over at the Internet Marketing Podcast for Site Visibility. I've recorded episodes. One of my favorite, I've recorded so many great episodes, and I don't mean that in terms of egotistically saying they're great. I mean, for me, they've been great because they've been enjoyable. Just getting to meet some really fascinating people and talking to them about what they do. The one that stands out probably most was a guy who's pretty well known called Joe Polizzi, and this was for the Internet Marketing Podcast. And he founded the term content marketing, and he founded the Content Marketing Institute and led that company for 15 years or so before he sold it. Now he's aside from his efforts in terms of philanthropy, he's spent some time writing a fiction novel, and I had a just immediate and an immediate rapport with him, and we just got to speak really openly, and I just felt like his guard was down from the start, and that always helps with recording. My cat's telling me now, I don't know how much you can pick up on this mic, but my cat has jumped on me. He's now crawling all over me, and he's telling me that it's game over. But yeah, go check out my episodes. I loved speaking to Doc Williams. He was one of my early guests. I really thank James Mulvaney for his time. I've got Alex Williams, who I've just spoken about. Who else? Oh man, there's so many. There's one other. Oh, Russell Novelty. Just a real creative explosion on the podcast, and our conversation went. We were kind of visually. We were speaking about how we think about creativity and our messaging creativity from a visual perspective, and that's so hard to describe via a podcast. But we tried, and we were doing it, and he was so open on that podcast. I really enjoyed that as well. There's just been so many good ones. So if you like what you're hearing, particularly whether it's these episodes or the guest episodes, please do let me know. If you've got any guests that you'd like to recommend that you think I'd love to interview, or maybe they're just they'd like to speak to me, just put them in touch, tell them where to find me. And any feedback that you've got on the show or any topics that you want me to cover, then send them my way. Scott at theadvertisinghour.com. Miles is here. He's laying on my chest. I've got one arm free. I'm going to play some music. I'm going to take a drink. I'm going to have a puff on CBD from Sensimilla. Shout out to Sensimilla. And we're going to take this one home. Oh, and this music, by the way, I'm going to play the music to see us out. This music is Guustaav with a track called Pocket Aces. Enjoy. Ah, there's that sound of summer again. It's dark outside where I am right now. I'm hoping that I wake up. It's a little bit cooler, but the sun's still shining. Take care. Till next time.